Do I have the Raptors or do you have the Raptors?
You have the Raptors.
All right. Here we go. We signed I play for the Raptors now. Did you know that? They signed Jakob Poeltl to a 4-year, $80 million deal with a player option. Gary Trent Jr., surprisingly to me anyway, opted in for $18.6 million. Dennis Schroeder is on board for 2 years and 25. Jalen McDaniels, we just talked about him with the Sixers, 2 years, $9.3 million. Otto Porter Jr. opted in after just basically missing the entire year. That was not a surprise. $6.3 million for him. The Raptors drafted Grady Dick at number 13. They fired Nick Nurse and hired Darko. I've spelled it wrong, so I can't read it now. Where is it on your sheet?
I think it's Darko Rajakovic.
Rajakovic. I knew it was like Stojakovic. What did I write? I wrote Jakovic. Terrible. Lost Fred VanVleet. I'm sure we'll discuss that. And lost Delano Banton. And did I miss anything of consequence other than that?
I feel like you weren't critical enough while you were going through the list of moves as like kind of a what the fuck face. And they did. They waived
that for you. I was going to give you the runway there.
They waived Joe Wieskamp. That matters. But you mentioned Gary Trent Jr. Is he? And congratulations, by the way, to Garrett Temple for continuing his run of just being a locker room, getting paid to be a locker room.
Come fix our disastrous locker room.
So there's the Pascal Siakam trade rumors that are floating around out there. I assume a Gary Trent Jr. extension is going to be coming because, like I said, I couldn't identify the team that was going to pay him more, but I was surprised that he opted in. So those were the other two notes. This team, you talk about a disastrous offseason. This is now the second time in a row they let a franchise cornerstone walk for basically nothing. And you know what's even more egregious? You could argue they think Kyle Lowry is solid. He was past his heyday. They got Precious Achiuwa out of him. Fine. Fred VanVleet left for 2 years, 2 guaranteed years, and you couldn't muster up like the ability to, we'll be in the tax, but we'll figure out how to cut that down later. Maybe it's a Chris Boucher trade, and do we get rid of Otto Porter Jr.? Do we move those other pieces around? And yet you turn around after giving up a top 6 protected first-round pick for Jakob Poeltl. He kind of had you in the bird rights trap. You just gave $20 million a year, which is still, let's say, 15% of the salary cap moving forward, to someone who probably can't close games for you right now because of his free throw shooting, at least not most of the games.
And part of the reason you did that is because you traded a lightly protected first rounder for him. Like, we definitely, let's throw the good money after bad now. I mean, I don't know how you factor that into the offseason, but like the trade they made to get him is very much part, I think, of why they paid him what they did to keep him.
And by the way, you let the player who assisted on 1/3 of his baskets just leave for nothing, for no compensation. You don't get to spin that in a good way. Okay, Dennis Schroeder might be fine. Jalen McDaniels, nice signing. Your floor spacing is dog shit, even more than it was so last season. And I like the Grady Dick pick, which is the saving grace of this offseason. But like, this team is going through, and it's not just this summer, it's now a years-long existential crisis. And we are far enough removed from the bubble escapade, from the season they spent in Tampa, to where they need to have a better hold on who they are and where they're going. They do not. This was, I try to give Masai Ujiri the benefit of the doubt, but this was an offseason that was just straight up fuck shit. And I don't say that lightly. They get an F-. This was the worst offseason in the league. And I don't know, you know what? Even if they turn around and trade Siakam and get a bunch of value for him, or even if they turn around and then double down and acquire someone who really helps them and is what they need, that's not going to salvage their grade for me, because you let this player who is mission critical to what you're doing leave for nothing at a time when that just doesn't happen anymore. I just don't know. Yes, you have Scottie Barnes still. You have not made the spacing environment around him any easier to make him work on the ball. And I still believe in Scottie Barnes. I think this team has a lot of talent, but what is their aim? What is their angle? What are they doing? I have no idea. And you know what really bugs me is I don't think this is a situation where, and just based off people I've asked this question to, we're 30,000 feet removed from the situation where it's, we don't see what they're doing, but there's like something going on. No, this team has no fucking clue what it's doing behind the scenes either. They are spinning their wheels. They don't know what's happening. This is probably one of the most inflammatory things I've said in the podcast in the last year. And I'm not trying to be like full talking head about it. I was so high on the Raptors leading into last season. I was wrong. They were clearly wrong, but like, they were wrong in a way where they didn't even recalibrate with it. They doubled down and then they still let Fred VanVleet walk. How do you give them a higher grade than the lowest grade possible? Can we give an F-?
Well, I stopped at F, so I'm way higher on it than you are. But yeah, it's an it's an F for me. I think the only I mean, it's like beating a dead horse, but like you could go down all their major transactions of the last year and say like, well, they should have done the opposite. Did not trade Fred VanVleet. Should have traded him. So now I much more than you do, am always of the mind, well, you got to trade this guy now because the possibility of him leaving for nothing would just be catastrophic. And you're right. That doesn't happen that often because you can structure it as a sign and trade. There's ways to prevent that. But now you better believe I'm going to bring up the Fred VanVleet example a lot when I start talking about guys on expiring deals that you should trade, or, certainly trade them before they get to the expiring year of their deal. I think you should have traded Gary Trent. You should have had some idea of what, like, you can't just be in a position. And this gets to the larger point of like something feels kind of rotten in Toronto, just like holistically. You can't be in a position where I got to believe they were surprised that he opted in. I assume, because if you'd had conversations and that was going to be his plan, I think you probably would have traded him, or you just don't make the Poeltl trade full stop, because what was the purpose of that? Like, just were you trying to get better last year? Do you think he's a key piece of if he's the key piece of a team going forward? What is that team supposed to be?
I think he helped as like an actual screener and roller guy. He helped Fred VanVleet, but then you turn around and let Fred VanVleet walk away. So it's just
so it's an F for me. If I were giving F minuses, this would be the worst offseason. This to me is the worst offseason. And it's because you get a little bit of everything. Like, you get the mismanaged assets leading into it. You get a bad signing. You get the big picture of like, this team just does not seem to have a handle on like what direction it's going or how to get there. So you get it all with Toronto.